Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a new week here on the Beauty of Pastel. My name is Bethany, and since this month we've been working on garden themes, I thought I would come out, sit on my front porch. I'm surrounded by these beautiful flowers. It's a beautiful May day here, and we are going to have so much fun with today's painting. Now, for this week's lesson, sometimes I bring to you guys what I like to call paintings from the past, which is my way of taking an older reference, an older painting, and reimagining it with new skills and new techniques that I have developed over the years. For today's painting from the past, this is my original. I hope you can see it. It is behind glass, but it is some geraniums. This was a reference that I had that I painted many years ago. It's been framed behind glass. This was a gorgeous reference that you're going to see in the video, but you'll notice in the video and in the photo reference that the background of the geraniums is a little confusing. There's dark areas, there's light areas. The photo was taken outside, and when I painted this originally, I didn't really know how to handle those different light effects off in the background, and so I just painted everything blue. So here's the piece we're going to paint today. You can see that it has some really lovely coloring in the back. It's not just solid blue. I've got some darks and some lights and some wonderful light coming across. This is on Lacarte paper that I rescued from an old painting. So I hope you enjoy this. Please, wherever you are, stay safe, stay healthy. I hope you get to enjoy the outdoors, even if it's on your patio. Let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome to this week's video. I am working on a piece of Lacarte, and you can see that there's a ghost image of an old painting of mine. I have not ever reused Lacarte before, but it's such nice paper that I had this was an old painting, and I had kind of just wiped it off to see if I could retain some of the texture, and I was so glad that I was able to save this paper. Now, this type of paper does not take any kind of wet underpainting. Lacarte is a beautiful French paper, but the surface, the grit of it doesn't like any kind of liquid. And so in order for me to reuse this, I just brushed it off with just a paintbrush in my front yard, made sure that that pastel dust didn't drift towards my breathing, and the grit is still there. Right now, I am really loosely sketching in. I know it's difficult to see. I tried to use a darker pencil so you could see my marks. But in this reference, I showed you early on in the beginning of this video, my little intro, about how I had painted these geraniums once before, years and years ago, and I was unsure how to really create the effects of light, and especially this background of this photograph. Now, the background of this photograph is very much loose. There's a distant fence, and there are some light areas and dark areas. And I know that I want to create something off in the background, but in my earlier painting, I just didn't know what to do, so I made all of it blue. In this instance, I'm going to be creating some different effects to indicate that light and that dark without having to put in so much detail or put in no detail at all, as how I did it in the beginning. With the, more final layers, of course, since I'm not doing a wet underpainting, this is a very direct way of painting, but I am still going to follow my same methods of working dark to light and cool to warm. And so in this instance, if you look at this reference photo that I have popped up there, you can also download it to look at it in more detail. You can see that there are some areas of the flower pot that are lower in deep shadow, and those are what I'm carving and painting in right now. I used a very dark green because this pot has some moss on it. Of course, there's deeper, darker areas of this terracotta versus the very bright colors that we'll be adding later on that are going to be to really help bring in a lot of that light. Now, it's important for you to know that as I am going through this painting process, that especially that area that I'm working in right now, that right-hand side terracotta pot, that area I am going to eventually just let it be very, very loose, impressionistic, and I'm not going to finish and finalize it quite like I will the pot that I'm working on right now. I really love that effect. It's almost more of a memory painting versus everything being finished in equal amounts of detail. And so, I'm really mainly going to be concentrating on this left-hand side pot going forward. Right now I'm working with some oranges. I swiped in some beautiful ochre Diane Townsend pastel, and then this one that I'm working on right now is a wonderful orange Terry Ludwig. And these are much brighter in value, you can tell. I'm going to be working mostly on the pot in the very beginning, and then I'm going to work towards my flowers as we go forward. I really love in this photograph how there is this deep shadow and also this really nice, vibrant light that streams across. And so those are the areas I'm just trying to capture, and all of that has to do with value. This is a Richardson, very dark, cool green. I'm mainly looking at the green geranium leaves here, the ones that are more in shadow, carving those in. And this Le Carte paper is handling them really well, even though there's a ghost image of a painting already on this surface. It has plenty of grit, and so I'm able to cover, especially using softer pastels like these. Richardson is a little bit softer than some of the other pastel brands out there. And I'm really mainly just looking at the shapes of the leaves. Now I'm also painting with a Terry Ludwig eggplant. That's the very, very deep dark purple. Of course, in the reference photo, you'll also notice there are deeper shadow areas within this potted plant, casting down over the lip of that plant. And instead of using a black charcoal, which I love to use black charcoal, I want to use just a softer pastel here. And I'm using that eggplant color that everyone loves so much. It's a great, great, deep, deep color. Tapping, being very fluid here, I'm constantly looking down at this reference. Now, this is a little bit different than whenever I work on a landscape, because I want to tell the story of this specific scene. This is more of a still life than painting a tree or painting a river or water, which you can kind of move around. You can move around a tree, you can move around a path of water to better have a better composition. In this case, I'm wanting to really be very careful about the scene, and so I'm looking down. I have the photo printed. This is an old photograph from a house that we used to live in. And this was actually taken on Mother's Day, which we just, celebrated that. And so I thought that they would be really pretty flowers for May and for celebrating Mother's Day all around the world. Everybody loves geraniums. You can see that I brought in some really lovely peaches to help me with that light effect. And now I'm going to start tapping in some dark red pastels for the geraniums themselves. Now this is a red from the Terry Ludwig Basic, Maggie Price Basic Values collection. Red is probably the color or the hue in my palette box that I have the absolute least color. There just isn't as much red in my landscape. I don't paint a lot of red flowers, although I love them. But this is a really nice dark, almost pinky red. I am painting the shadow geraniums right now, not the ones that are being hit with more light. You can see that my marks are really loose. I'm following the general shape, making pretty thick, chunky marks. I'm not, really tediously trying to draw every single petal and every single aspect of this geranium. I want an impression of a geranium. And these, nice chunky marks are fairly simple. I am also pulling in some darker, deeper reds. Here, you can see that right there. It goes in a little darker just to add, just some interiors to these flowers. And also some reds that are, just being more in the shade. There's this light that is coming across is very direct. It's a very sideways light. It's not coming as much from the top, an angle from that top left corner, for instance. It's coming more from the side. And so when you have a lot of difference of value, especially we're going to add a really bright red in a second, it's going to really help all of these geraniums make some sense. Really just looking right now, still painting. Going to add in some detail on the leaves a little bit. Whenever I look down, I'm really trying to place, where do I want to put this on the painting? At the very beginning when I was talking and sketching it in, there are some very light pencil marks that I realize are hard for you guys to see. That's just because of the paper color. And but I can see them a little bit better than you probably can. That is a really nice warm Giraud that I'm using right there. And here's where we're going to start having some fun. So you'll notice in the reference photo how there is one half of the distant background is much lighter than the left-hand side. That is another effect of the sunlight. And this paper is especially so much fun just to sweep and be very dramatic and bold. And so I'm using a Great American right there to just carve in some effects of light, carving and using negative painting, which negative painting is carving back into what you have painted, creating those negative and positive shapes, carving back into to create some interest and texture, especially along the edges of something. I'm really looking at the photograph here, cutting in light where I see it. I do not want to add a lot of detail. I'm really, really letting the reference photo just tell me, really relaxing my eyes and letting it tell me what it is, letting me just look at the color, just look at the light, follow that, make very spontaneous, immediate marks. If you see a color, pick it up and put it down as fast as you can. Use big, broad, bold strokes. Here I'm working a little bit closer with some more true green. Sorry about my head back there. You can see I'm using just really quick, decisive marks. I look down at my reference and I look up and I make 3 or 4 marks and I look right back down again. 1, 2, 3. Looking down. You can see. I'm almost letting, memorizing what I see, looking at my paper, putting it down, and then I make the marks and then I can look down back and forth and back and forth. This is, of course, that much brighter red that I was talking about earlier. This is also a Terry Ludwig from that same collection. I don't think I've ever reordered reds before. I think these are probably some of the original reds that I have that I purchased probably 12 years ago. That's how little I use bright, vibrant reds. That's a new pastel that I'm using to help me have some little stems and little leaves and little leaflets off in the distance, or in that right hand side geranium, planted geranium. Really just having fun with this. Now, also in that reference photo, you'll notice that there are some sky holes within that darker distance. I did decide to lighten up. Instead of having such a dark and light background, I wanted to lighten it up a little bit, but adding this beacon blue, of course, that's one of my very favorite beacon colors. And then also deciding, I'm going to soften some of that Great American a little bit with some of the greens and some of the blues. So I am looking at the reference. You can tell I'm looking at where the light is, looking at where the shadows are, and just really letting it inform me and tell me what to do. Adding that red in just really helped show the light quality a little bit more. And just a few simple marks. There are some dark shadows, especially right there where I'm working. Right now I'm kind of working on just, that lip of the pot, stepping back, trying to get some shadows correct right here. That's that Townsend Tirage. I love that one. It's a wonderful color. Now I'm going to add some blues. Since I added some up in the sky, I decided I want to add, of course, blue is also always a wonderful color. I swipe it in and then maybe tap a little bit of that out. That's not me trying to remove the blue. It's just softening it a little bit. And then cutting back in with that light to help indicate, that there's a little touch of shadow from that upper, that more yellow-green leaf that is filtering down onto the lip of that pot. I'm just working on that effect right now. Really just trying to use, using my pastels in different ways. Like, that's a new pastel. Using it in a more linear fashion, it helps me get those cleaner lines, especially like a little shadow line, than a thicker, chunkier pastel. Really just making those definitive, confident marks. I'm also going to add in some brighter warm green. I had already added bright warm green, but not quite as bright as I wanted. I'm still working my way up in value, especially on the geranium. And I am looking at the average shape of these leaves, but I'm not a photorealist. I frankly am just not patient enough to be a photorealist. I love to look at photorealistic paintings. I think they're incredible, but I am just a little too impatient of a painter. I like to move quickly. I like the spontaneity of creating fast. It helps me stay loose. And, really just looking at the general impression of the color and what it's saying to me. That blue right there, I remember adding it and thinking, oh, I loved it. That was such a fun effect to put in. It just really made the painting just seem like it was really almost finished. This is when the painting starts to sing to me. I often tell my Marco Polo group that, painting, knowing when to stop is sometimes when does the painting start to sing to you? And at that point, if you keep working on it and keep working on it, it tends to lose its voice a little bit. And so if you make some marks, if you make some color choices that are you just really love, then that might be the time to step back a little bit and either slow down, go get a cup of coffee, or take a walk around the block, or put your painting away even until the next day. Because sometimes, we want the painting to keep singing. We want to keep giving it a voice. But sometimes if we overwork those specific areas, then the painting, it just gets a little quieter. And that blue, whenever I put that in, I remember thinking, oh gosh, that just, to me, the painting feels already finished. I don't even know that I wanted to keep going on it. Other than, yes, I am finishing up that background distance. I'm still adding in some blues. But that right-hand side geranium is about as finished as it's going to be. This is an impression. This is an impression of a geranium. And right now I'm just, I'm just really stepping back and looking to see what, does this painting even need anything else? Or did it sing to me enough? It's hard sometimes, since I'm right-handed, to paint things on the left-hand side without blocking your view, but I'm really just working on that ellipses, of that pot. And I can work. You can work on ellipses forever. I'm not necessarily really trying my hardest to make this perfect, because it is an impression. But I do want it to make sense, and I want it to be, accurate as much as I can in a quick painting, a quick memory painting. Still working a little bit on some of those geraniums. Using a little, you can tell that I'm slowed down a little bit, because I don't want to lose the voice of the piece. Being really delicate right here. That's just a very deep, dark rust colored, that's a unison. Those edges of that far right, or the far right of the main terracotta is very, very lost and found edge. That's something I really love to paint. Whenever I do paint a still life, I love those lost and found edges of the pots, especially. They're fun to work on. And now I'm just making sure that all of my flowers have a stem. They're not floating around. Going to take a pencil and just make some fun marks here to kind of break up and almost hash mark those edges. Use a little bit of green to correct some of that pot over there on the right-hand side of the main pot, I guess I should say. Pulling in a little bit more of that blue that I loved so much. And you guys, that is about it. This piece came together so quickly. It was such a fun discovery. Whenever you take a reference that you have painted before and you really just let yourself go, have fun, paint quickly, use limited marks, even using different paper in this instance, an older piece that I had just, saved because I didn't want to throw away that nice Lacarte paper. This was such a fun, quick painting to put together for you. I hope you have enjoyed watching it. Thank you so much for continuing to be here. I have another beautiful garden painting ready for next week. Next week's is going to be a bit more of a landscape, a garden path in a beautiful yard, and that one will be really fun to show you because the reference photo for that painting does not look like the finished painting. So I hope you keep checking in. Thank you so much. I hope you are all well, safe, and happy, and that you have a great rest of your day. Talk to you soon.